Hello YouTube and welcome to my first Game Maker Studio tutorial, and this tutorial is about the very basics of Game Maker Studio and making your own indie games. So first off, when you want to make your own indie games, you're going to have to first go get Game Maker Studio, and you can get it from yoyogames.com. There are multiple versions of it, and you can go to Family, and then you're probably going to get the free version to start off with, and then I suggest getting the professional version next if you actually like using the free version. So once you finish downloading Game Maker and have it all installed, this is the first screen you're going to see. Let me load it up. I clicked it. Okay, this is the first screen you're going to see, and welcome screen down here are any recent games you've been making. Like, I have quite a few. So what we're going to do is go to new, and our first game is going to be Tutorial 1 Basics. Okay, so we'll create, and this is the main window of Game Maker Studio. This is your resource tree. You'll see all your sprites, sounds, backgrounds, objects, rooms, everything here. To create new resources, you can click these buttons up here where my mouse is, or by right-clicking the folder and going create sprite, or create font, or create room. So what we're going to be working with today is just to create sprite, objects, and rooms. We won't be using any of these until I go on to further tutorials. So when you first start off making games, the first thing you do is probably make raw graphics for your game. So what we're going to do is do a simple top-down maze game. So we're going to start off by making a sprite. SPR player right. That's what I usually start off with, and you can... I'm going to try and go as slow as possible, so what you do is right-click, click create. This window will open up. You can hit this edit sprite or load sprite. If you have a sprite in another file, you can load it, and just tell you sprites are just images. So are backgrounds, but sprites are what you mainly use. So we're going to go edit sprite to use the built-in editor for Game Maker Studio. Next we'll go file, new, and we'll just keep the dimensions of the sprite we're making 32 by 32, so we'll just hit OK. And now all the frames of any animated sprites will show up here, but since our sprite is only going to be one frame, we'll just double click on the first frame, and this is a basic image editor, and we'll make a circle that's blue, actually red. We'll make a red circle, and then we'll put some little eyes right here. Whoops. Some little eyes. Just make them 3 wide. Like this. You can make however pretty you want your sprite to look, or if you just want to look ugly. So now that we have our first sprite, what we're going to do is, since this is going to be a top-down game, we're going to have the player be able to walk in 4 directions: up, down, left, and right. So this is the sprite for when it looks right. So now we're going to right-click on the sprite that should now be under the sprites folder, right-click on it, and hit duplicate. We're going to change the name of it to SPR player down. We're going to go edit sprite, and instead of redrawing the entire thing, we're going to use one of the built-in filters. Go transform to rotate. You can use all of these to change how the sprite looks. So we're going to transform the sprite, we're going to rotate it, and we're going to rotate it 90 degrees clockwise. So now it will look like this. This is the original, and this is the new one. We'll just hit OK. Hit the little check mark, hit OK, and we'll do this 2 more times for the last 2 sprites. SPR player left. Rotate 90 degrees clockwise, OK. 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 Duplicate. Rename. SPR player up. edit sprite, transform, rotate 90 degrees clockwise, okay, check, okay. And now that we have all of the images for our player, we're going to add one more sprite. Right click on the sprites folder, click create sprite. We'll call this SPR wall. Edit, new sprite. We'll have this 32 by 32 also. And now we'll draw a simple Mario styled block that I use also in a lot of my games. And I drew wrong. This square is messed up. Let me fix it, guys. Sorry about that. Okay, so we'll do a simple Mario styled block. And we'll make that a little bit darker. Go down to that one, that, there. Okay, now that's our wall block. Okay. Now that we have our 5 sprites that we're going to use, what we're going to do is we're going to make our first object. So to make an object, you can right click on the objects folder and click create object, or you can go hit this circle right here. So we'll just create an object, and this is the object menu. So first off, we'll call the name of this object object player, and then we want the starting sprite of this to be right. So this one right here. So now we have the sprite as right. So we're going to add an event. So what we want it to do is we'll do keyboard. So the difference is of these events is, for example, like key press, like when you hit a certain key, it'll do something. Keyboard events are when you press and hold a button, it will do the action that you put in the entire time that you have the key pressed. So we're going to use the keyboard buttons and use the left, add a right, keyboard right, add event, keyboard up, add event, and keyboard down. So now that we have these 4 events added in, these are for the player to walk with. So, actually scrap this. Get rid of all those. I'm going to do a simpler system that isn't as good as the system that I was thinking of, but it's a little bit simpler to get to work. So, we're going to do key press, add all of the key press events in, up, left, right, up, and down. So we now have the key press, up, left, right, and down events in there, and add in key release, up, left, right, up, and down, up, down. So now that we have these 8 actions in for the key press and the key release, what we're going to do is we're going to add 2 actions to each of the key presses. We're going to first add a move event. So we're going to have the player move the direction. So I want to explain this a little bit. So all of these over here are called drag and drop actions. They're the simplified version of GameMaker language, which is the code here that you can type in code if you know GML, which I do, but it's rather advanced, and I'm going to stay away from it for right now. So these are all just different drag and drop actions. When you mouse over them, they pretty much tell you what they do, or a name for them. So the first action here is move fixed. So we're going to drag the little icon over into the actions. And now it'll open up the settings menu. So we're going to have, when you press down the key, the left arrow key, we're going to have it move left at a speed of 5. That sounds good. Do not check relative. So now that we have that, we're going to go into the main 1 tab here and go to change sprite. So we're going to drag that in, and what sprite do we want to change to? We want it to change to SPR player left. These are not important right now. The speed is how fast you want the animation to play if your sprite's animated, and the sub image is what image it is in the sequence of animated sprites. So now what we're going to simply do is Control A to select both of them, to select everything in here, and then right click, copy, and now we're going to go to up and paste it into the up event. Change, double click on the move, drag and drop, and change it to up, and uncheck this one, otherwise it's going to either go up or left. Randomly choose, so you want to hit the up one, up. And then we're going to change the sprite that we want to change to also to SPR player up. Again, go to key press right, paste, change the direction from left to right, and then change the sprite to player right. And finally do the same thing with down. Uncheck, check, and down. And now for the key release events, we're going to do something a little bit different. What we're going to do is go to the Move tab, click on Move Fixed, and we're going to just click the center one and set the speed to 0 so that it stops moving when you release the button. We're going to copy and paste it into all the key release events. Like so. So now there should be the stop moving in all of the release events and the move and change sprite in all of the key press events. So now what we're going to do is create our first room. So right click on the room folder, create room, and here's the room window. This is a room editor. If you press down your middle mouse, you can drag around to move the room around. You can zoom out with your mouse, zoom in with your mouse. So here is the Objects tab, and what we can do is we can put objects into the room by clicking. If you right click and delete, you can take objects out of the room. So what we're first going to do is just simply put our player object into the room anywhere you want. This blue area is outside the room. Avoid putting stuff out there. So this is all we're going to do for the room so far. So we can hit the check, and now we're actually going to play our game for the first time. You can hit this green arrow to run the game normally, or you can hit this orange arrow to run the game in debug mode. I usually just use the green arrow, so that's what we're going to do. So when you hit the green arrow, your game should open almost immediately, and now we can test moving our player around a little bit using the keys we set. So it moves pretty simply. Moves like I'd expect it to. This is the simpler way of doing it, but it's not always the best. It's a little bit more difficult to get diagonal movement in and stuff like that. So now we can just simply close our game. Now I suggest saving, as it's a good time because we've done a little bit. And now we are going to add another object, and if you didn't guess, it's going to be our wall object. So we're going to right click the object folder, click create object, rename it to object wall, go to our sprites, hit the little down arrow or click in the box, it doesn't matter, click SPR wall, and we're not going to add any events, but this is very important, so listen. When you're making a wall object or something that you don't want other objects to pass through, you have to click this checkbox here, checkbox, to make the object solid. This was a big problem when I was making my first game because I didn't know about this, so you could walk through my walls I made, which was a big problem since it was a maze game. So yeah, now we can hit OK, and now we're going to go back to our object player. Add an event, add a collision event, collision with object wall. So when the player collides with object wall, it's going to do whatever actions we put in here. And the actions we're going to put in are going to be to stop moving, just like we did with the release. So now that we make it so when our player runs into the wall, he'll stop moving. We'll go to our room again, and what we can do is, a little tip is, if you shift and then drag your, no, wait, what? Yeah, that should work. It's not working for some reason. What? Okay. Okay, that's different. I haven't made much updates. Well, they have updated GameMaker, so I'm kind of... that's different. I didn't know you could do that. Alright, never mind. So what you can do is you can hit Shift and Control, and then click and drag to put lines of objects like I'm doing here. So we're going to put a simple box around here. Simple box around. So now we have a box around. We're going to move our player over into this corner here. And what we're going to do is we're going to make a little maze. So we can draw a wall like this, draw a wall like this, draw a wall like this. So now we have a nice little maze. We're going to try it. Try your game, hit the green arrow to run your game. Make sure you can't walk through your walls, because that would be bad. Looks like it's working just fine. And now, since we can go through our maze completely, we're going to add one more object. One more sprite and object. Let me check how long this has been. 17 minutes. Not bad. So we're going to add one more sprite and object. So this sprite is going to be SPR finish. So it's a finish line. So we're going to do the standard race car finish line. And what we're going to do is we're going to make a simple black square that takes up about that much of it. Another black square, a white square, and then another white square. So like so. So it's like a finish line. SPR finish, hit OK. And now what we're going to do is we're going to create an object, and we're going to call it object finish. Add the sprite, the SPR finish sprite, add an event. It'll be a collision event with object player. So when the player collides with the finish line, what it will do is it will go to you'll go to main 2 tab and room next room. So when it collides, it'll go to the next room. And now we'll go to our room and put some finished lines in. Oh yeah. Turn that off. So now our room looks nice and has a finish line. So we're going to go walk through our room. We'll walk through our room like we normally would. And once we hit it, we get an error. These will come up a lot when you're developing your game or when you're developing games, because there's always problems with your game no matter what happens. So instead of just hitting abort right off the bat and leaving it, I really advise you to read it. Fatal error in action 1 of step event object player for object finish. Moving to next room after the last room. Unfortunately, this one doesn't really make sense, but I can tell you what happened. We tried to go to the next room, but there's only one room. So there's no room to go to. So it came up with an error. So what we can do is we can simply right-click the folder, create room, and make a new room. So we're just make another room. And we're not going to put a finish line in this one because this is the last room in our game. So we'll just make a different design for our room. Here's our next level. So we'll have the player start there. So now let's test our game with 2 levels in it. Let's walking through our game that we just made in 2 seconds. Or like 20 minutes. That's a bit more than 2 seconds. And once we collide with that, we're at the next room. And you can add as many rooms as you want. This is the first tutorial of my Game Maker Studio tutorials. This is the very basics. Remember to save. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this first tutorial for Game Maker Studio. Thank you for watching, and I am out.